Welcome to the Film Analysis, today featuring Porco Rosso by Hayao Miyazaki. Released in 1992, Studio Ghibli released this remarkable film. We see the title character on a lonely beach on the Adriatic Sea. He is wearing his aviator outfit, drawing the image of the bohemian at the same time. Miyazaki typically, repeatedly presents us with still life in his films, images lacking people. Here we see a table next to Porco with a bitten apple on it, 2 rolled cigarettes, a glass of red wine, but since we are in 1929, there is also a radio. We hear a French song from the Bohemian period from 1866. Bohemian refers to a life beyond social conventions. It is associated above all with artists, but also with the flaneurs, with the outcasts. And in some way, this Porco is also a bohemian figure. He strolls through the world or flies through the world. He is melancholic, but he is not only a flaneur, he must also fulfill assignments again and again to earn money. His first task in this film is to free a group of students from the hands of air pirates. So we don't see an interstate conflict here. Porco is a pilot from the First World War. Instead, we see conflict between privateers and pirates. And Porco flies an Italian fighter plane from the First World War. He wears a flight suit, but no longer a uniform. When he is in company, he wears a beige trench coat suggestive of film noir. Humphrey Bogart and others immediately come to mind. Porco's antipode here is also not directly the state, but it is Curtis, an American, but also only hired by the pirates as an aviator to fight Porco. Curtis is not thinking of the nation state, but primarily of himself. He wants to become famous, possibly as a film star in Hollywood. Everyone gathers in Gina's bar. The owner sings that song from the radio again, and the atmosphere resembles Rick's Cafe. Casablanca constitutes the foil for this film. Rick is also a private, but the film was made and is set in the Second World War. The point here is that you can no longer remain a private citizen, but must get involved, a plea for anti-fascist commitment. In this way, taking up arms is the decisive factor. With Porco Rosso, it is different, a different time. Italian fascism under Mussolini is already here, and soon this fascism will also begin to dominate the Mediterranean. But we are yet to be at war. Miyazaki shows us a transitional period. A retreat into the private sphere still seems possible. There could be a sphere outside the political where one is no longer caught by such ideologies at all. Porco became known as Marco Rossellini as an ace pilot during the First World War. He has undergone a transformation. War affects one heavily, and he received a pig's head. The film is calmly narrated. Although featuring action scenes in the skies, even a grand finale, a detached melancholy mood prevails. Joe Hisashi's music contributes substantially. He works with Italian folk songs, broadly orchestrated, but also with electronic sounds. And above all, a minor key prevails again and again, creating a mood in which the sadness, even when there is laughter, can never be removed. We have a protagonist with a pig's head. Consequently, we are dealing with an outcast figure who can no longer be subsumed into the ruling ideology, into fascism. He is now dehumanized. Porco suffers a machine failure quite early when Curtis wants to duel him in the air. Porco manages to escape to Milan and he desperately needs a new plane. But there are no men around capable of building this plane. However, Fio, the granddaughter of a friend, steps in. She has an incredible flair for aeroplanes and knows how to design them. And she wants to build this plane for Porco. But not alone, you need workers. As the men are absent, all the women are recruited in the factory to build Porco's plane. We are not supposed to simply identify with a character. We sympathize with Porco, but also witness a flawed character. He repeatedly comes across as macho, expresses himself in a misogynistic way, but that is not the attitude of the film. After all, the women produce the planes, as is so often the case with Miyazaki's films. It is a feminist film, but lacking the virtue signaling current Hollywood cinema features, as in Disney. We have made a feminist film for once, applaud us. Instead, Miyazaki demonstrates society could function differently, and above all, he tells of complex characters, illustrating the necessity to overcome Disney's clear good-evil black-white thinking. Thus, Miyazaki renders identification with the character never entirely possible in the sense of this is the best character, I identify with this one, but at the same time, this characterization is closer to reality. One could now retell the plot, but one notices that the plot does follow its course and is linear. The film rather wants to create moods with individual scenes. These are not isolated, but it is about understanding this emotional state, internalizing it. It is transferred to us. The memory of the First World War weighs heavily. There are the dialogues in Gina's bar taking place in semi-darkness. There are bashful scenes between Porco and Fio. There is also that famous recruitment scene in the cinema. Ferrarin, once a colleague, a comrade of Porco, enters the cinema. Porco is already sitting there. They are watching a film, but here Porco is to be recruited for fascism so that he is no longer a pig, so that he belongs somewhere again. And the fascists also accuse Porco of being decadent and committing crimes against morality. But Porco clearly says he would rather be a pig than a fascist. With Porco, there is indeed the nostalgia of days gone by, but this nostalgia does not lead one to move to the right. Not at all. Yet they watch a film in the cinema. We have a typical film within a film scene, and we see Mickey Mouse-like characters on the screen. A woman must be freed from the hands of a pig. Again, it's about flying aces in this film. It's an explicit critique of standard storytelling, the rescue of the woman and of the clear good-evil drawing we know from Disney. There's often, and here too, a great enthusiasm for technology in Miyazaki's work, including military equipment. And yet we are dealing with a pacifist film. In a scene, Porco tells Fio a memory from the First World War. He was in an air battle, he lost consciousness, his plane kept climbing higher above the clouds. And he woke up again and suddenly saw his comrades, the comrades who had been shot dead with their planes ascending with him higher and higher. Not towards a Milky Way as it seems at first, but a path consisting only of airplanes. Planes from all over the world, from all nation states are approaching. We have arrived at a level where nationalism and the nation state no longer play a role, where we see what war does, namely that all the dead come together in the sky. And there is something beyond the political world. Miyazaki insists on that. He delineates something greater than daily political trifles and geopolitics. This notion causes the special melancholy Miyazaki's films feature, particularly strong in Porco Rosso. We must talk about the drawings. Miyazaki doesn't apply garish colors. He works strongly with pastel shades. He works out technical devices in detail, almost with the precision of a mechanical engineer. But there are other things to see. The film works out plants and trees thoroughly. He uses paintings of expressionism, but above all, he draws on impressionism. Even in Gina's garden, when the flowers are dappled. And significantly, paintings in the style of Cézanne also hang in the hotel. But there is also this abstraction in Miyazaki's work. Of course, he works figuratively, but we always see sections of the world of water, of the sky, using only areas of color. We finally arrive at paintings by Ernst Wilhelm Ney. Naturalistic components interrupt these abstractions. A head floats on the water, for example, on this blue-colored surface. It is illustrated here in this film, and one can think of poster painting of the 30s and 40s. You can also think of the old Casablanca poster, but there is this own Miyazaki style. It's not eclecticism. It's not a question of him taking a little bit from everywhere and stirring it together, but creating something original. At the same time, it stands on the shoulders of these art giants and follows Japanese cartoon tradition, as especially the faces indicate. The narrative structure of the film is also dabbled in, and it doesn't want to tell us everything. It doesn't want to offer us this coherence, giving us peace of mind. We have understood the film, now we no longer need to think about it. No, this film reverberates within us and it asks us to watch it again. The mood of the film is rather somber, even when it is light. It features a moment of seduction despite all the gloom. Another important woman in the film is Gina, a mixture of femme fatale and femme fragile. But even that doesn't resolve it. There's much more to her, a sovereign, clever personality. You feel this melancholy when she sings Quand nous chanterons les temps des cerises, et gai rossignol et merle mon cœur seront tous en fête. She sings of the cherry blossom time with its merry nightingales, the mockingbird, everyone being in a festive mood. But the second verse already states Mais il est bien court, le temps des cerises. The cherry blossom season falls very short. It says, these moments of happiness sadden the character. These moments have passed. Can they be recreated? Porco wants to cross out the past. There is this picture that shows what it used to look like. The face is crossed out, but still the past does not fade away. Porco has seen it all. He is an outstanding personality, but there is a strong weariness of life in him, a weariness his resounding laughter can't cover. How can we characterize Porco? Perhaps with the words of Laszlo F. Feldini from his great Melancholia essay. It states the melancholic are outstanding precisely because life in them reaches the state of overfulfillment. Being overflows through them. This also explains their unrelievable sense of lack. Once the world of measure is abandoned, overflowing without emptying is inconceivable. In this way, the all suffers a rupture in its personality. This is where the feeling of being chosen comes from, the melancholic, but also the hatred that increases to the point of self-destruction. This is where they are strong, outstanding, but also the most delinquent. End of quote. This Porco was a hero. He is supposed to be a hero again. He is celebrated by the press. He has seen and experienced everything. But he also contains the urge to cross everything off to everything seemingly nothing, worth nothing. Their power, Fellini continues, is infinite because they have known the end. But they are unhappy, especially since they have experienced the transience of man. Porco also experiences this due to war. Fellini, their trust in being has been lost, their strength and their frailty, their unhappiness and their heroism cannot be separated from each other. This brings us back to the beginning of our train of thought, namely to the Aristotelian question about the melancholy of outstanding personalities. Aristotle wrote, yes, why do all exceptional men in philosophy or politics or poetry or the arts turn out to be melancholic? End of quote. Or even the great aviators, or even the great filmmakers like Miyazaki. Melancholy pervades all Miyazaki films. Technical progress is embraced with enthusiasm in the drawings, but the ideological implications may lead this progress to death and ruin. Or let's think of the fundamental skepticism towards all those ideologies intending to abolish the individual, like fascism. Anti-fascism characterizes Miyazaki's work. He always wants to open a sphere of the private, not as an escape from the world, but to show other human problems we must tend to. It is also important to leave the sphere of daily politics again and again in order to see what else renders a person human. There is love, for example, there is longing, as here in Porco Rosso. Porco is a loner. He is not simply a solitaire, but quite dependent on society, only on a society he chooses, not imposed by the state. We see the women accomplishing this incredible feat of building this machine. We see friends, we see Fio, Gina. The end leaves a lot unsaid, spaces for reflection, for a second or third watch, but even after multiple viewings, these spaces don't close. Rather, they enlarge, as is often the case with good classics. Take Casablanca. What happened with Rick and Ilsa that night? Was there something going on between them? We don't know, but it resonates. The film continues in our minds, and the winner's party moves on to Gina's place. So there, where one no longer experiences this state grip, there where one can be for oneself in a semi-secret penumbra. Miyazaki suggests a beyond of the nation-state. And then the kiss. Fio kisses Porco, hoping he would transform. She has kissed him before, and this represents, of course, the fairy tale element from Frog Prince, decidedly named. Again and again, Miyazaki draws on the fairy tale. Interestingly, he doesn't show us whether this transformation took place. The characters react differently to the face, but it's not shown to us. Does he change back from a pig to a human being? Did this retransformation take place? We know what his face looks like. There's no need to keep it from us. We know it from the photo. We know it from the flashback, but we are not shown this reversion. Why is that? Well, perhaps because something else has changed. Maybe Porco's face has not changed, but courtesies and our gaze, as well as the gaze of the other characters on Porco, has now become a different one. This gaze recognizes the human being in the pig's face. In other words, we no longer watch, but see. It would be nice if you would like to support the film analysis financially. You can do so via my bank account or PayPal. Also, you can find me on Patreon. Thank you very much.